qualitative methods, quantitative methods, and within the qualitative research methods, Professor Pokhriyal and I discussed, and we thought we'll talk about the Delphi technique and the focus group method. So you have the focus group interviews and you have the Delphi technique. Both of them are part of the qualitative research method. That said, both of them also have one more similarity, and that similarity has got to do with both of them in one way or the other have got to do with interview method. So within the qualitative research methods, you have ethnography, you have participant observation, you have non-participant observation, you have case method, you have interview method, and in the interview method, we would be talking about two of the very interesting and nice qualitative research methods called the Delphi technique and uh, uh, the focus group interviews. So in the Delphi technique, what I'll do is I'll share one screen. Okay. Please confirm as you're able to see the screen.
Yes, it's visible.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So the first technique that we're going to discuss today is the Delphi technique. First, let me tell you a little bit about Delphi technique. Delphi technique is one of the forecasting methods. It was used as a demand forecasting method. It was used as a forecasting growth method. It was used as forecasting sales method. It was used as a general forecasting method as well. So it's essentially from the Delphi technique that the focus group interviews kind of got originated. I'll tell you that story when we get to the focus group interviews. And what happens in the forecasting is now if you, I mean, it's though it started out as a forecasting method, it could be used to get any kind of expert's opinion, and that's the reason as to why it's also called the expert opinion method. Delphi technique is also called the expert opinion method, and if you want to get opinion on anything, meaning to say, like you have let's say want to get an opinion as to which of the two things are good, or which amongst many things are good, considering whatever research that you're doing. You could get the expert's opinion as to which one is actually good, or which are better, so on and so forth. I'll try and keep this discussion abstract whenever I'm talking about the generalities, and
Dr.
to
Reddy,
move from the generality.
Dr. Reddy,
Yeah,
if
please.
you can give me that right back, because there are few people trying to enter.
I'm admitting them.
Okay, fine. That's great,
right?
then.
So
Then
I'll try and
continue.
I'll try and do both.
Yeah. Right. Thanks.
So right, no problem. So in the Delphi technique, we'll first stick to, let's say, the demand estimation. Let's say demand for steel in 2023 May. Okay, so you want to understand what is going to be the demand for steel in 2023 May, and for this particular exercise, the very first thing that you've got to do in all the qualitative research methods, this is imperative, that the researcher does a lot of desk research. Researcher, does a lot of work, lot of sifting through a lot of literature, and that is the cornerstone on which the success of any qualitative research method lies, and that is true for expert opinion method or Delphi technique as well. Therefore, when you want to understand what's going to be the demand for steel in 2023 May, you need to understand now who are the experts in the steel sector, and your selection of experts should cover the 360-degree of the expertise that is involved within the steel industry. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to put together five experts. Let's say the private sector steel expert, the public sector steel expert, international trade expert in steel, a coal expert because the coking coal is a very very important raw material for making steel, and let's say an economist who's involved in steel, or economist in core sector, right? You have like these five experts, and let's say I've done a lot of research to understand what constitutes the 360-degree expertise within the steel industry, and I figured out that these are the five experts which would kind of give me the 360-degree expertise in 360-degree view of the steel industry. And these are the five guys. One is from the private sector, another one is from the public sector, and one is an international trade expert in steel, and the fourth one is a coal expert. I told you, like coking coal is one very important raw materials for making steel, and therefore you need to have a coal expert. And then you have an economist in the core sector who is dealing with steel. He or she, would be doing a lot of work within the core sector. They would have a good understanding of the growth of the steel industry. And what you do is you ask all these five experts a question in an interview schedule, and let's say the interview schedule has three or four questions, which would say, like, what is going to be the demand for steel in 2023 May, and why do you think the growth would be this, whatever it is. They're going to be two, three questions. Let's now restrict to just one question. So that like it's simple for me to explain the entire Delphi technique. And tomorrow, I mean, what I mean is later, what you could do is like you could say, if you have multiple questions, how do you address them in the Delphi technique? So within for these five experts, you ask one question: what is going to be the demand for steel in 2023 May? It's not just that one question, and that one question, whatever one number that a particular expert is putting as he or she thinks is the right number, they'll have to give a detailed explanation as to why do they think that the steel is going to grow in the demand for steel is going to be so much in 2023 May. So that's the important thing. Like it's not just that you ask experts to put a number. You ask experts to put a number and also give a detailed one page, 1.5 page, 2 pages note as to why they think that the demand for steel is going to be so much in 2023 May. So what happens when you ask them first? Let's say like you get the first feedback. It's called the first iteration. In the first iteration, or in the first conversation that you have with the experts, then there's one other important thing in Delphi technique. It's not necessary that you pull together all of them physically together and ask them questions. Whereas in focus group interview, that's the characteristic of the focus group interview. The focus group interview, you have these 5, 6 experts together in one room, and that's essentially how the focus group interview started. And then last 2 years, they were online focus groups. But then ideally, focus group interview is one where, like you have all the experts together in one room, right? Anyway, in the Delphi technique, you could have them, operate out of their offices. You don't have to call them. You don't have to call them to one place. You just tell them, take out, solid time, like about an hour, 2 hours, or whatever, a leisurely time. You give your opinion as to what is going to be the demand for steel in 2023 May, and that 1 2 hours that you take out, you pen down your thoughts. You pen down your thoughts as to why do you think that the demand for steel in 2023 May would be so much. Let's say you do this, and the private sector steel expert, supposing he or she says 7% is going to be the demand for steel, and they would give a lot of reasons in the sense, whatever they see, like in the private sector, the steel offtake is so much, the housing is going to grow by so much more, and then you have the roads, the bridges, the dams, which are coming into the private sector are so much, and therefore the demand for steel in 2023 May is going to be at 7% higher, or 7%, 7% compared to whatever it is today. And they would give all of those notes, right? And similarly, the public sector steel expert, let's say, might say the demand for steel in 2023 May is going to be 3%, because the public sector expert might have said, the inflation, you know, is kind of rising so much, and therefore the cost of steel is going to rise, because the cost of construction is going to go up. There's going to be so much less of construction, and public sector projects are not so many. Whatever are the reasons, I'm just trying to create reasons for them, right? So public sector, next year the monsoon is not going to be that very high. Therefore, the general growth index is going to be less. Because the general growth index is going to be less, the offtake of steel is going to be less. Whatever are the reasons that they would say, and then they would, and this expert would put down that the demand for steel is going to be at 3%. Likewise, when you ask international trade expert in steel, he or she might say that the demand for steel is going to be 9%, and might give you a lot of reasons, like in China there are so many projects, coming up, and then you have CPC, you have road and belt in other countries, because of which, there's going to be so much of the steel demand in 2023 May. The coal expert, when you ask the coal expert might say, okay, the demand for steel might grow at 4%. I'm sorry, demand for steel is going to grow at 4%, considering whatever logistics and the other issues that they would have in the supply of coking coal, including coal mining, the government policies around coal mining, so on and so forth. And then an economist that you would ask might say that the demand for steel might grow at 5%, this particular person might give his or her own reasons as to why the steel demand is going to be 5%, right? The whole idea is, in the first iteration, when you do the first iteration, the demand for steel is going to grow anywhere between 3% to 9%, as per the experts. And this is an extremely bad estimate. That's a very bad estimate, because you can't go out and say that the demand for steel is going to be 3 to 9%. People would laugh at you. Now that's something that anybody would say, right? I mean, like that range is so big that anybody could say that the demand for steel is going to be anywhere between 3% and 9%, right? That's too huge a range, and that range is useless almost because like you can't do any planning if the range is as high as 3 to 9%. That's exactly the reason as to why you will have multiple iterations built into the Delphi technique or the expert opinion method. Now, what I mean is, now these experts would have said whatever they would have said, and they would have given you a page or a page and a half of whatever reasons that they would have given. Now it's the researcher's work. The researcher will have to go through each of the notes, a page and a half of notes that each of the expert has given, right? And prepare a iteration sheet. And preparation of the iteration sheet is something which is very critical. Now, why I say that is the private sector steel expert has said now it will grow by 7%. And you need to do a second iteration with the private sector steel expert, whatever he or she has given. You identify the let's say, like for 7%, they would have given you 3 or 4 optimistic reasons as to why the demand for steel is going to be at 7%. You find from the others, that is the public sector steel expert, international trade expert in steel, coal expert, and the economist in the core sector. You go through whatever expert comments that they have given, and you will have to prepare a iteration sheet for and each iteration sheet that you're going to prepare for each one of them is going to be different, and it's going to draw out, let's say, if the private sector steel expert has given 5 optimistic reasons as to why the steel demand in 2023 May would be 7%, you will have to pick out the pessimistic factors, let's say from the public sector steel expert, let's say from coal expert, and if there are any such pessimistic factors exist in the first iteration sheet of international trade expert in steel and economist in the core sector, you pick them up. Making that iteration sheet is something that is extremely important, and which needs a lot of understanding of reading both what they have written, and also reading what is there between the lines when the experts have given you their first iteration sheet. Now in the second iteration, you prepare now different iteration sheets, the 5 different and unique iteration sheets based on the kind of forecast that these experts are sticking their neck out and saying that it's going to be whatever. Like the public sector steel expert might have said 3%, and he or she would be working in their own environment. In their environment, they would see however much that's possible for them to see within their day-to-day work, and what you need to do is you need to bring out the other things that they don't see but then exist within the steel industry, like what the private sector steel expert is saying, or what the international trade expert in steel is saying. You bring all of those things up and then prepare an iteration sheet. Iteration sheet for the public sector expert would say, like these things, the optimistic factors which you pick up probably from international trade expert in steel and the private sector steel expert, and then you say, in this context, in the context of the second iteration, would you want to revise your estimate? And if you want to revise your estimate, what is going to be it? And again, give the reasons as to why you would revise your estimate. So that's how you prepare the iteration sheet for each one of them. Let's say now for the public sector steel expert. Similarly, for the international trade expert in steel, you prepare another iteration, which probably comprises of pessimistic items brought up by the public sector steel expert and the coal expert. And for the economist, you can pick out like both the good things and the bad things, and then the pessimistic and the optimistic reasons, and prepare an iteration sheet and ask them, now what do you think the steel demand is going to be? Let's say the private sector steel expert might say, okay, it's going to grow by 6%, and the private sector steel expert might say, okay, it's going to grow by, let's say, 4.5%. And let's say the international trade expert in steel might say it's going to grow by 8%. It's not that they're going to just give you the estimates. They're going to give you the estimates and also that 1 or 1.5 page note, a very precise, condensed, but extremely comprehensive note as to why they say like the demand for steel is going to be whatever it is going to be. So now you see like in this iteration, right? You've got another range. Let's say a range of between 4.5% to 8%, right? I'm sorry, 8%. So now like 3 to 9 was too broad a range. It was now like 6 points long. From there, you've been able to come out to 4.5 to 8%, right? The third iteration and the fourth iteration and the successive iterations are going to be very tougher iterations for the researcher. That's because like you've asked these people and they've said whatever, and they've given their estimates. So those estimates, what you will do is you will take enough and more time, let's say a week or 10 days, to prepare the third iteration sheet. And that third iteration sheet is going to pick up the positive and the optimistic items from international trade expert in steel and the private sector steel expert in steel, and pick up all the pessimistic factors from public sector steel expert, coal expert, and the economist, the core sector, and prepare and appropriate. I'm not saying like this is exactly what you're going to do. You're going to you will take the
Dr. Byra Reddy, I think you have some internet issue. Meantime, let me just inform, maybe after 8-9 minutes, we may go off and then again rejoin. Let's wait for Dr. Reddy to get connected, because he is having the permission. So at this moment, I just cannot give you. I think Dr. Reddy is going to rejoin. I think he's gonna rejoin us. And in the meantime, just a common announcement. Let me take this opportunity because many of you have given the assignment. Some of you have not. So, I mean, I have all the detail. Please send it in next 48 hours so that we can have everything at par, and I can put the internal marks together. The whole objective of these objective of this exercise, getting different expert, is the latest approach in research methodology, so that you get different perspective. Now today you're getting economic perspective out of a Delphi method. The whole idea of Delphi method is those who are into sales, marketing, demand forecasting of any of the thing. This method is very, very good. Also, within the qualitative, we may have a session on grounded theory. And the second part is, what I have written to you is about the another topic on survey quell. That's very, very good on related to service quality, and I have given you. So from the marketing aspects, this becomes very good and very, very useful. Same way, very soon we are going to start for the peoples in the banking sector, financial sector, some of the methodology which are needed to be used. So a sector specific approach is always more useful, so that people get connected to each other. And hello? Yeah, okay, sir. But I don't see, you are already in, I think, sir. You are in now. Yeah. Over to Dr. Reddy.
Hey, all right.
So, Dr. Reddy, we have just eight more minutes, so you may wrap up this by 8 o'clock. Keep the time ready, and then we will rejoin again. Yeah.
Hey, I thought the session got over.
No, something wrong with your. Anyway, let's
internet connection.
Start it. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So let me. Okay. Can you make me the host so that I share the screen? Professor Pokrial. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Please confirm if you're able to see the screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I don't know. I was going on talking. I don't know where the screen went off, and then I realized I'm speaking to myself.
It was the third iteration you were talking about.
Okay. So the third iteration. Let's say the public sector steel expert sticks to 4.5%, and let's say the international trade steel expert comes to 7%, and let's say like the coal expert says it's going to grow by 5%, and let's say the economist sticks to 4.5%, right? So in the third iteration, you have made some more improvement. Now, like you have 4.5 to 8% range, right? Which is still okay, but then it's not good. You should go on with the further iterations until you get a range which is like 1% or 0.5% range. So the task of the researcher in the fourth iteration, fifth iteration, so on and so forth, is going to be tougher, but it's going to be challenging. It's going to be a great learning experience. Meaning to say, like when you read those iteration sheets that you get from these experts, like you reading them and trying to, you know, uh, trying to get the pulse of the expert as to where he or she is coming from and why they're sticking to a particular estimate, and identifying that and trying to address that, taking a view from the other experts, taking the iterative items from the other expert. So that way, like you will continue to do these further iterations. Let's say in the fourth iteration, I'm just like uh, putting it to
कल तो मैंने same
not exactly the same. It could be, let's say, like something like now 5.5%, and let's say, like 5%, which still means that you have 5 to 5.5%, right? I mean, like you can stop at 5 to 5.5%, but in my experience, you will not get from third to fourth. You will not get to 5 to 5, from 4.5 to 8. You will probably need the fifth or the sixth iteration. So in a where do you stop? It's left to you. What you will discard, what you will keep, is again something which you will decide. Maybe in interactions with your research supervisor, both of you wreck your brains enough to see how do you make the further iteration sheets until such time that you get to 1%, or let's say now 0.5% range, right? And you will not get to this range by itself. You will not force them, but you will only ask them. You will only ask them to put down a range, which is, like kind of uh, uh, you know which is kind of, making them see what they're not seeing, nudging them. You know it at the end of the day, they won't get frustrated. They should not get frustrated, meaning to say, like you should put things up in such a way that you're nudging them by showing them something that they're not seeing, right? So that way they should feel that it's a learning experience for me as well, not taking part in the expert opinion method, right? So that is how you bring it down to 1% or 0.5%, and this entire process is called the funneling process. You funnel, the you fu- you funnel the opinions to you funnel the opinions to our opinion, which is very reasonable. And if in case you're not able to get it, let's say beyond 1% or 1.5%, and they remain sticky, then it's the job of the researcher and research supervisor. Both of them will have to say, okay, like if this is what it is, do further research, and you try to funnel it down, and say, like it's going to be 5 to 6%, or it's going to be 5 to 5.5%, or whatever it is, like you try to funnel that down further. So that is precisely how you will have Delphi technique. So then what we'll do is close this session, right? And take questions and start focus group interviews in the next session.